history of waterjet technology. The idea of high-pressure water used for cutting material goes back to the Roman Empire. They used a similar methodology for excavation and infrastructure development from 27 BC to 476 AD. Waterjets first officially appeared at the beginning of the 19th century when miners from the Soviet Union and New Zealand used pressurized water drained from streams to remove loose rubble and coal. The same conception, water under pressure to extract gold from soft rock and flush it down the river for miners, was applied during the gold fever that took place in the 19th century in California. The power of steam made it possible for the pumps to reach a water pressure of 800 psi at this stage. With the ability to develop higher pressure, it became possible to cut a wider variety of materials with a jet stream. At the beginning of the 20th century, the development of the steam boiler allowed the industry to reach a pressure of around 1600 psi, which was tremendous growth. Even though hydraulic mining is not the primary use for waterjet machines now, it gave a head start for many inventions that led to the current role of water as a tool of industrial cutting devices. In the 1930s, waterjet technology was used for cutting materials such as paper, with a jet stream technique invented by Leslie Tyrrell and Elmo Smith. In the 1950s, a forestry engineer named Norman Franz began experimenting with high-pressure water systems in an effort to cut lumber. His findings proved that abrasive water jets were effective in cutting through harder materials. After some time, researchers noticed the advantages of adding abrasive materials to the water jet to cut through harder materials. While this method was not an effective one at the beginning, this new project allowed the development of new mixing tubes and materials. Originally, sand was used. However, it was not until the 1960s that technology reached a point where water alone could cut through metal. The addition of computer software capable of controlling a jet movement to repeat the same cutting pattern over and over again introduced waterjet cutting to the market. The first customer was the aviation industry, where waterjet cutting was able to recreate small parts with high accuracy. At that point, the typical part tolerance was only 0.2 millimeters. In the mid-1960s, G.L. Walker and S.J. Leach conducted research into traditional waterjet cutting. Leach helped to define a perfect shape for waterjet nozzles. In the 1970s, the invention of crystal stream holes, now called the orifice created by the Bendix Corporation, made the waterjet cutting method commercially viable. The first waterjet cutting services date back to 1971. The first commercial waterjet cutting system was installed at the Alton Boxboard Company, a cardboard manufacturer. Known as Fluidjet Cutting System, it eliminated the use of commercial saws. It was designed for contour cutting of molds for furniture packing at Paper Tube Division in Jackson. And that is where the story of Omax begins, in the person of its founder, Dr. Olson. In the 1970s, he developed and patented one of the first amplifiers for a pump. In the 1990s, after 20 years of experience, he revolutionized the industry again, developing a pump based on a crankcase, which Omax has been developing up to this day. Waterjet capabilities continue to evolve as diamond orifices are replacing sapphire orifices, and standard nozzles have been evolved into cemented carbide. The manufacturing industry is constantly striving to make this process more precise, reliable, and accessible.